Hello, in this section, I will go over finding the slope of a linear line when given an equation or when given 2 points. So, yeah, this section is all about finding slope of a linear line. So what is the slope of a linear line? It's basically the rise over run of the linear line. For example, the linear line y equals 2x plus 1 has a slope of 2 over 1. It's basically the number in front of x. So the reason why I put it as a fraction, 2 over 1, so the number in front of x is 2, but I put it as a fraction because slope is also considered the rise over run. Okay, so what that means is you rise 2 and run 1. So basically it's you can also think of it as a change of y over a change of x. Okay, so yeah, and then slope can also be expressed as a so if they give you 2 points, you can find slope using the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Yeah, if they give you 2 points instead of an equation. So sometimes they'll give you an equation, sometimes they'll give you 2 points. So now you can know, you can find the slope either way. Okay, so I think we could just get right to the problems. Let's start with example 1. So example 1 says, what is the slope of the linear line y equals negative 1/2 x minus 5? So they give us an equation, and it's easy to find the slope when they give you equation. So slope is pretty much the number in front of x, the constant, right? So the constant is negative 1/2. Okay, so that's the slope. It's negative, so you're gonna rise 1, and then you can go 2 units to the left. So right now we're not focusing on graphing. I just want to know the slope. So the slope is negative 1/2. Okay, let's move on. Example 2 says, what is the slope of the line that goes through the points 2, 3 and 4, -1? So this time they don't give you an equation, they give you 2 points. So you have 2, 3 and 4, -1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label the first point x1, y1, and label the second point x2, y2. Okay, so if you recall, the formula for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? So that's why I labeled these, because it can be very confusing if you don't. So what's my y2? It's -1 minus my y1, which is 3, positive 3. So it's minus y1. And then on the bottom, it's x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is 2. Okay, simplify this. So on the top, what is -1 minus 3? It's -4. And then on the bottom, what's 4 minus 2? Positive 2. So that simplifies as -2. So my slope is going to be -2. Okay, so that's how you find the slope when you're given 2 points. Okay, let's move on. Example 3 says, what is the slope of a vertical line x equals 3? So I remember in the previous lecture, a vertical line, the slope would either it was undefined. So if it was a vertical line, the slope is undefined. And now I will explain why it is undefined. So if I were to graph x equals 3, what would that look like? It would look something like this. Here's 3, it goes completely vertical. Okay. So let's do the algebra to show you why it's undefined. So let's pick 2 points on this graph. It doesn't matter what point as long as it's on the graph. So 1 point here, this point here would be like 3, 0. And then another point on this line could be like 3, 1, right? Okay, so if you have 2 points, label the first point x1, y1, label the second one x2, y2. Okay, so my slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so y2 is 1 minus y1 is 0. X2 is 3 minus x1 is 3. So you get 1 minus 0 is 1, and then 3 minus 3 is 0. So what happens when you have a 0 on the bottom? It's always going to be undefined. So if it was 0 over 1, it would be 0. But if it's 0 on the bottom, it's undefined. So that's why the slope of a vertical line is always going to be undefined. Okay, let's move on to example 4. Example 4 says, what is the slope of the horizontal line y equals -2? So if you want, it could be helpful to graph it. So, and in the previous lecture, we said that the slope of a horizontal line is always going to be 0. Okay, so if you graph y equals -2, here's -2. It goes completely horizontal like this. And what you're going to do is pick 2 points on that graph. So it doesn't matter which one. Let's pick this point right here. So that point is 0, -2. And then let's pick another one. It doesn't matter which one. This point here would be 2, 5, this point here would be 5, -2, right? Okay. Now label the first one x1, y1, label the other one x2, y2. So slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my y2 is -2 minus my y1 is -2. So careful, it's minus a -2. On the bottom, x2 is 5 minus x1 is 0. Okay, so if I clean this up, on the top, what happens when you have 2 negatives? It becomes a positive, right? So really, it's -2 plus 2, which is 0. And then on the bottom, 5 minus 0 is 5. Okay, so what do we know? If the 0 is on top, it's going to be 0. So that's why your slope is always going to be 0 when it's completely horizontal like this. Okay, So whenever you see a horizontal line and they ever ask you what is the slope, you can probably say it's going to be 0. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the last example. So the last example says, given the linear equation, what is the slope of the line? So sometimes they will give you an image, an equation, a graph, right? And they might not be nice enough to give you 2 points. You'll have to find those 2 points. But this time I did give you 2 points. So they give you a line. We don't know the equation of a line. And they give us 2 specific points. You don't have to pick those 2 specific points. You can pick any point that touches the line. That's perfectly fine. But since they gave us 2 points, we'll just use it. So sometimes you can eyeball it. You can determine how much rise and how much you run. I don't like that because I can easily make a mistake. So I'm going to pick 2 exact points on the graph, and the 2 exact points I'll use is the one given, 0, -2, and 3, -1. So label as x1, y1, x2, y2. So slope is y2, which is -1, minus y1, which is a -2. And then on the bottom, x2 is 3 minus x1. Okay. So 2 negatives becomes a positive. So on the top, 2 minus 1 is 1. And then on the bottom, 3 minus 0 is 3. Okay. So our slope is positive 1/3. That does make sense because it's going to the right. And you rise 1 and you run 3. So if you don't believe me, what you could do is start at 0, -2 and then determine if you rise 1 and go 3 units to the right, you'll have a point on the graph, which is true. Okay. Later on in the course, you're going to find the actual equation of this line. So slope is part of the, yes, slope is going to help you. It will be helpful finding the equation of the line, but you also have to find the y-intercept, which I will explain most likely in the next video. So yeah, this is the slope. Okay, that wraps it up for this section.